As far back as 2013, the CEB's Integrated Electricity Plan 2013 to 2022 identified liquefied natural gas as an option for the diversification of its generation mix. In its report in October 2013, the National Energy Commission recommended a feasibility study on LNG. In 2013, the Central Electricity Board appointed Worley and Parsons to carry out a pre-feasibility study on the assessment of LNG potential for electricity generation. The 2015 World Bank report recommended that the Central Electricity Board should proceed with the procurement of gas turbines to run initially on diesel. It also recommended that the detailed specifications of the generating units be prepared to ensure quick conversion of the gas turbines for operation on natural gas at a later point in time, such that these units can be considered as a combined cycle gas-fired thermal plant in the future. Following these recommendations, on 7 October 2016, the Central Electricity Board appointed Électricité de France, which, amongst other matters, recommended that the construction of the open cycle gas turbine phase 1 and combined cycle gas turbine phase 2 be considered under one single bid. After obtaining approval of the Central Procurement Board, on 8 February 2018, the Central Electricity Board launched bids for the supply, installation, testing, and commissioning of the combined cycle gas turbine at Fort George. I am informed that 9 bids were received at the Central Procurement Board on 6 June, as at 6 June 2018. With regard to Part A of the question, the Central Procurement Board has not yet communicated its decision on the award of the contract. With regard to Part B, the highest peak demand recorded in 2017 was 461.5 megawatt, and the highest peak demand recorded in February 2018 was 468.2 megawatt. With regard to Part B1, the information on the energy demand and supply balance for Mauritius for the past 10 years is available in the Digest of Energy Statistics on the website of Statistics Mauritius. I am tabling the relevant extracts of the document. Merci. With regard to Part B2 of the question, in my replies during the Committee of Supply, I informed the House that the report of Patten and Partners was due in July 2018. I now stand informed that the consultant has submitted a draft report. As the LNG project has implications on different sectors and requires high-level strategic decisions, I am chairing a ministerial committee which will examine the draft report and subsequently make recommendations to government.
Madam Speaker, I think there's a little bit of confusion. I had wanted the energy, the supply and demand balance for the next 10 years, not for the past 10 years. Some confusion. If you have it, I have it, but if you have it also, it would be nice. We can compare notes.
Latest 10 years.
The latest, yes, for the next 10 years. It's okay. I have it, so we can manage. I'd like to ask the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, I mean, everybody is always saying that the World Bank has recommended the procurement of this gas turbine. But this is, in fact, not the truth, because the case is that the World Bank only recommended the gas turbine as an emergency procurement back in 2015, because it was under the impression at that time that we were going to come to blackouts. You remember there were questions in the House, etc. So it's incorrect to say that the World Bank has recommended the gas turbine for Mauritius. It was an emergency purchase, which 3 years later no longer applies.
Well, that is a question of interpretation. The World Bank report has been tabled, was tabled way back, and whatever it is, the World Bank recommended the construction of these gas turbines. Now, what was in the mind or the intention, and how should we read the World Bank report? We should perhaps revisit, but whatever it is, we have acted on the interpretation which everybody had of that World Bank report. We acted on what all our advisors were saying, which supported what we understood the World Bank to be saying. The tenders are out and we are going ahead with this construction.
I'd like to take this up again with the Deputy Prime Minister and bring the attention of the House to this page 64 of the World Bank report, which says this: additional capacity to be commissioned by 2018. It should have been installed now, is essentially an emergency action. And on page 65, given the emergency feature of this capacity addition, choose technology with lowest levels of fixed investment costs, thereby gas turbine. I'm sure that if you have missed that, the CEB and your ministry cannot have missed this, which is very prominent in the World Bank report.
Well, that's exactly what is happening. You give one interpretation and then you give a second interpretation. Let us be clear. Of course, what is the ultimate requirement for these gas turbines is that, call it emergency or whatever. Let us take a case example. For instance, there is a drought and there's no hydroelectricity. This gas turbine comes in. This is what we call what is called here emergency. I call it peak time, or we can call it drought time. Whatever it means, it is that whenever there is a shortfall in capacity and that we require additional power, this gas turbine will step in as an emergency, if we wish. But I don't think there is any difference between the opposition and myself. It is not a question of, with the blackout it was one thing, without blackout it's another thing.
Madam Speaker, it's not in fact the case. The World Bank at the time thought there were going to be blackouts because it had overstated completely the demand. CEB has constantly overstated the demand for electricity. And in fact, this year, we are about 60 megawatts from the same figure that you gave just now. We are about 60 megawatts less than what the CEB has estimated as our base figure. So I maintain, Madam Speaker, that the decision to purchase the gas turbine was an emergency decision to prevent the country into going blackout in 2018. That has never been the case because demand for electricity has been very, very, very much lower than was predicted by CEB.
Well, I don't agree. We can debate and go on and on about the 60 megawatt less than estimates. Let me see what CEB, what they will tell me. And I stand by the figures which CEB gives me. Well, I don't agree that it was in a particular context. Yes, it is true that at that time there was I have a note here which confirms that what I was saying. The emergency recommendations of the World Bank, according to the reading which we have of the World Bank report, the World Bank had recommended, one, to fast-track Saint-Louis, which we did, extend the PPA of CEL, the CCGT, the combined cycle gas turbines, were emergency in the sense that they would come in whenever there was a shortfall of electricity. Not in the sense of the blackout which was predicted. It was necessary to forecast additional power. Let us be realistic. A power station is not built in one day. Even Rome was not built in one day. Now, a power station takes 4 or 5 years, even more with the planning, forecast, etc. At that time, 2015, they said we must build this combined cycle, and everyone everyone had forecasted a blackout, but even now everyone knows that we need to have additional power if we want to cater for future development of Mauritius. Now, yes, that's all. My note is that they don't agree that it is 60 megawatt less than our last estimate. I have to look into the figures, or if the leader of the opposition has correct figures, there's no problem.
Okay, I will ask the CB not to mislead their own minister, because everything that I'm saying, I can prove, Madam Speaker. I can prove everything that I'm saying. The 525 in black and white, and so is the figure that you have given just now, which is 468 peak demand for this year. You have provided. But what worries me, Madam Speaker, is that the Deputy Prime Minister must take more time to look at this contract, because this is a contract with a value of 6 to 8 billion rupees, and it cannot be left to some members of the CEB to come and decide. So, Madam Speaker, I'm going to ask the Deputy Prime Minister, and this is why I had asked, this is the last board paper, one of the board papers of the CEB, and this is where the demand and supply table is. And it's, Madam Speaker, I will ask the Deputy Prime Minister whether he is aware that the CEB has, in my mind, deliberately overstated demand. You can easily see it even for this year. They are 20 megawatts over, has deliberately overstated demand for electricity. And to me, it looks deliberate also, pulled out retired machines. You're talking about peak demand. They are retiring 2 gas turbine machines at Nicolet before their useful life was over. And in my mind, it is to create an artificial need for this gas turbine. Is he aware? And will you look quite closely at this terrible state of affairs?
Well, not only I'm not aware, I would go as far to say that not only I disagree, I will go even further to say that I deny each and every of these allegations that are being made, by saying that there is a deliberate intention in misleading the population, according to me, is, to put it as mildly as I can muster, unfounded. If there are errors, that is another thing, but I don't believe that there are errors. I've looked into all these matters myself. Every week I look after this, especially this CCGT matter. Dependent on projects, the demand fluctuates. 5 to 5 is perhaps a figure that has been quoted. In board meetings, everyone floats whatever figures. So I cannot say that I agree with that, and I will never agree to this.
The Deputy Prime Minister must be aware of the IEP, the energy forecast, which has been published, a big document like that, but published by the CEB. That's where the figures come from. Madam Speaker, I want to ask the Deputy Prime Minister, since he's aware, is he aware that the board paper states clearly that the demand for electricity this year will peak at 488 megawatts? I can let you have this if you want. 488, whereas we are 20 megawatts lower. This is just to illustrate. I don't have time to go into all the details. just to illustrate how much overstatement is happening. And I'll ask Madam Speaker also whether the Deputy Prime Minister has read the World Bank report in detail, to see there, all through the World Bank report, about 100 pages or more, how it criticizes the CEB for having inappropriate tools for planning. And I hope you don't want me to quote again from there. All through the report, inadequate tools for planning electricity, and it says that it should urgently review its procedures. So has the CEB reviewed its procedures for planning? It was supposed to buy computational equipment, etc. Or is it the same as when the World Bank saw 3 years ago?
Everything is under constant review and updating. IEP has been updated. The figure of 525 is now being changed, as I've told you, every time. This is not a matter which is fixed. Electricity demand and supply is something which goes according to trends. There are many matters which are important. Let me, when we look at conditions which can affect the supply, we can see demography, well, the economy, of course, weather, social events, working days, public holidays. So there are so many matters which can affect on a daily basis the demand of electricity. So we cannot say, you said 525, today it is 490. I am now being told a new IEP for period 2019-2028 will soon be published. Then we shall see what are the new figures.
The Prime Minister has confirmed my point. That is when the World Bank were here. They were given 525. And that is why they said they wanted an emergency. Now it's being changed, but we are still going for the frame procurement that the World Bank had gone 3 years ago. Madam Speaker, I want to ask the Deputy Prime Minister this question. There are 2 gas turbines in perfect working condition after so many years. They are old in Nicolet. They can be repaired, not repaired, they can be kept in use, maintained for many years to come. Why does CEB want to retire these 2 Nicolet gas turbines now, in the next 10 years, whereas, again, in the World Bank report, there's no mention of the need to retire these 2 perfectly good working order gas turbines used for peaking.
The Nicolet engines date back 30 years. Now, you tell me that they are in good working order. Right. My daughter has a Golf which is 15 years old. She doesn't want me to sell it because she says it's still in good working order. Well, of course, everything is in good. The 2 pill stick engines at Saint-Louis were working, but we can't just say for 10 years we'll keep that. Then what will happen to me the day these Nicolet machines break down and I can't supply electricity to the nation? You will tell me I'm the worst idiot in Mauritius. Then I will tell you. You know what will be my reply? We can't say only the Nicolet turbine work. Everyone owns a car here. Don't we have to maintain? The cost of maintaining is prohibitive. And do you know how much we're paying electricity with? It's costing us 30 rupees the kilowatt hour. Are we going to sustain this, making the population sustain it? At 30 rupees per kilowatt hour, Nicolet, today, compared to what? About 5 rupees the cost, or whatever. No. Yeah, I tell you. Well, we can have divergence. Okay, I don't want to waste time. Yeah.
Well, the Deputy Prime Minister is older, and I hear still in good working condition. So, what I'm saying is this. The turbines at Nicolet, it's a very serious matter, in fact. The turbines at Nicolet have only 22,000 hours. They can go to 200,000 hours. Ask anyone you like. So,
Ask him.
And they can go to 200,000 hours. And whether or not they are more expensive, not as much as you say, as the new engines, they don't require 8 billion rupees of new investment. Whereas what you are doing there for peaking is 8 billion rupees of more investment that the country does not need.
I'm sorry, this is third world ideology. So we are a modern country, we are looking to becoming a high-income economy. We don't do that sort of thing, fiddling around with machines in order to make them run and run and run. You make me think of the taxi brousse of Madagascar. This is not a taxi brousse. This is a high machine and we have a duty to the country. I'm sorry, I don't agree, and it's a good thing that you are no longer in charge in government and that we are in charge in government.
Speaker, what the Deputy Prime Minister decides to do with his daughter's golf is his own affair. But when you ask the taxpayer to pay 8 billion rupees for turbines that are not necessary, this is another issue, Madam Speaker. And all the engineers of CEB are shocked. How did I get this information? Because all the engineers of CEB are shocked at the amateur way or whatever other reason that the management of CEB and God knows who else have in creating an artificial case for purchasing of a gas turbine. And now, Madam Speaker, may I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, this gas turbine, which is supposed to be converted to liquid natural gas, the tender is issued, whereas the Poten report on the feasibility of using natural gas in Mauritius has not yet been read by the ministry. What sense does it make to purchase equipment and then order a feasibility study to see whether that equipment can be used for gas?
Oh, then it must be my fault. It must be that for the last 2 years I've been unable to explain that matter clearly for the leader of the position to come to that conclusion. First of all, the leader of the position asks me in this question that many engineers at CEB say that has been done on purpose, etc. Well, I say I don't know of one engineer who says so. It's of one engineer of CEB, of one engineer of the CEB who says so. Well, it's easy to say it. In confidence, he can tell me, Mr. X has told me this. Now, second thing, all the senior engineers of CEB to whom I've talked are of that opinion. But not only the engineers of CEB. In my ministry, there is a technical division headed by a director general with a deputy director general. He tells me the same thing. In addition to this, I have a personal advisor. He tells me the same thing. They all tell me that this is what World Bank says, this is what EDF says. Now, I'm like the leader of the opposition, he's an accountant, I'm a lawyer. We proceed on advice, technical advice given to us. Each one receives the advice he receives, and we come to the conclusion. All these people are saying only this thing which I've just said. Now, perhaps the leader of the opposition has one advisor who is saying the contrary, and perhaps the world is wrong and one person is right. It has happened in history. But for the moment, now the next point which he made in his question was, please remind me of that, the second.
I'd like to ask the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister this question. Some time ago, in this House, in a PNQ to the previous leader of the opposition, he mentioned that he was agreeable to an all-party committee. You may remember that. To look, it's in Hansard anyway, to look at the whole issue. You don't seem to master the subject, if I may say so. You're relying on advisors. We have in the side of the opposition completely different reading of the same World Bank report, which I maintain firstly criticizes the planning, and secondly only says emergency procedure for the gas turbine. There are different issues. I don't want to go into the murky details.
Please be brief in your questions, only 4 minutes.
I don't want to go into all the murky details of whether this has met this. I don't want to go into that. But there is the planning. Do we need the machine? The second there is do we have the demand for electricity? Do we need to retire the other machines? Are there any murky things happening? All this, Madam Speaker, has to be dealt with, in my view, in a select committee, like there was, which the Honourable Prime Minister put himself in 1993. I'd like to ask the Deputy... Yes, I will stop when it's time to stop. I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, let us have, since in his own words he had proposed that 2 years ago, let us have this all-party committee, select committee, to look at the turbine question. God knows what conclusion we will all come to as one voice.
Oh, no. I mean, now I understand why government was not working all this time until 2014. What committee or not? Let us be clear. It's easy to say, you don't master your subject. One is an accountant, the other one is a lawyer. One pretends that he masters the technical aspects of electric engineering. I say I work as a team. I know the leader of the opposition may have his party members to discuss. Now I understand why. Because I work on a team and I master my subject because I look at the documents, I work on them, I listen to advice. But now, the select committee on the Nicolet, that was the third gas turbine, which the leader of the opposition raises. It was on a matter of corruption. It had nothing to do. There are 3 gas turbines. 2 had been already in operation. The third one was the subject of the select committee. And therefore, this matter does not arise at all. We are on track. We are going to do what we do. It's good that the leader of the opposition asks questions, even confrontational, so that enables us to know the level which the opposition has, or the level of knowledge which the opposition has of this matter.
You will have 2 minutes left, so I think it's only time for your last question. 2 minutes left, otherwise you compromise. Now 1 minute left. But then the last question will be for him, okay? If you agree that the last question will be for Honourable Duval.
I will come back, Madam Speaker, to what the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister is saying, and the fact that he has reneged on a statement that he made in March 2015, here in this House, to the previous leader of the opposition, saying he wants openness, doesn't want to have previous government was hiding this and that, and that he would be agreeable. He wasn't even asked. He went and provided this information. He was agreeable to an all-party committee looking at it, on the same subject. So what has changed now, 3 years later, that you no longer agree to have an all-party committee, and you make fun of me when I ask that? Why don't you agree now with what you said before yourself, that you wanted an all-party committee to look at this issue because it's a national issue, to use your own words?
I am not making fun of the leader of the opposition. Far from me the idea of doing so. And if I gave that impression, I'm very sorry and I withdraw whatever I may have said to have created that impression. On the contrary, I take the comments of the leader of the opposition to be very serious. The answer I gave was on 24 March 2015 to the honourable leader of the opposition, the third member for Rosing-Stanley now. The context at that time, but today, the decisions have been taken, solutions have been found, so the question does not arise.
Time is over.